CertiK actually reached out to us and wanted to do a kind of co-host kind of podcast event about security because they care about the community, and also they want to reach out more to the avalanche kind of audience. And we'll get that why later on in this podcast session. And in this session, we just want to bring some insights into some of the back-end development stuff of these projects that we invited. And so we will host this event, I believe, monthly. And the first projects that we invite to the call is Platypus Finance. We'll know more about them in a minute. So from there, we just hope investors can learn something about how these projects work. What are some signs to look out for before you invest in these projects, and ultimately raising the people's awareness about these sketchy tokens in CoinMarketCap, and so you won't make bad decisions in the future. And yeah, how are we doing? You would say?
All good.
Righty. Daniel, if you see Daniel in the call, let me know because I'm still waiting for him. And remember to inform him to use his mobile device too. I think Twitter Space does not work on PC or laptop.
Okay. I think we can get started already if you want.
I've gotten very annoyed with how Spaces don't work on the web browser. I don't know why they do that, but it's very frustrating.
Well, there is a sneaky way. If you download BlueStack, do you know BlueStack?
I do not.
Okay, so it's like an application that's supposed to kind of represent your phone, Android device. So you download BlueStack and then you can just play Android kind of games on your laptop, on your PC. So yeah, I would think about downloading BlueStack and then download Twitter, and then you can just host these Twitter Spaces event on your laptop with BlueStack.
Awesome, I appreciate that.
Oh, and for the record, I don't know how safe they are too.
We're talking about security.
Yeah. And would it be funny if we're talking about security and we're recommending all these shitty apps? Dude.
It happens. All right. Yeah, about you mentioned how we reached out. I've seen the Twitter Spaces kind of get more and more popular, and I think they're just a great way to kind of reach new people and have good conversations because a lot of this stuff will be put out over blogs and stuff like that, but especially nowadays, people don't always want to read. So I think Spaces are a great way to get information out there for users, and so we're just kind of reaching out and seeing who's interested.
Yeah, and the session will be recorded too, so it will be available for eternity. Well, unless we fail and crypto dies. Who knows? But yeah, it will be available after this session, so if anyone's missing this wonderful session, just go ahead and revisit our Twitter and also website for the recording. Alrighty, so I think it's time we should start. Shall we? I think Daniel can join us later.
For sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah? All right, cool. So, CertiK, I don't think you guys need much of an introduction, but if you want to, just go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. So my name's Chase. I'm the social media manager for CertiK. If you guys don't know about CertiK, we're the industry-leading blockchain security company. We have a wide range of services from auditing, Skynet, KYC, bug bounty, and all that, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit later. But with me today, I have Michael, so you can go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name's Michael. I sit on the business development team over at CertiK, working to bring in new audits, make sure the audits in-house are happy, and manage partnerships with industry leaders like AVAX Daily and Platypus. So super excited to have a conversation today and kind of share how we're working to secure the Web3 world.
Nice. Yeah. What about you? It's Beavertail, because Platypus is our guest for today's podcast. So
yeah, sure. So my name is Beavertail. I'm the smart contract lead for Platypus Finance. And I've been involved in Platypus since day one, building the smart contracts. That would be it.
Well, cool. Great to know. And let's go ahead and dial back to CertiK then. So why do you want to reach out to the Avalanche community? It feels like, everyone knows who CertiK are, and you guys are one of the leading auditing firms in blockchain already.
Yeah, that's a good question. So historically, we've been very strong in the Binance and Polygon ecosystems. They are strategic partners of ours. So we have kind of an easy onboard and process with those ecosystems, and that's been a large part of our clientele. But we definitely see Avalanche as one of the stronger ecosystems, and we feel like it'll only continue to grow. And CertiK does have the mission of securing the Web3 world. Like, So that includes all ecosystems. And obviously there's like the business side of it where we have room for growth in different ecosystems. So we're obviously going to target that. But overall, we truly do care about the overall security and adoption of Web3. So we try to do anything we can to kind of reach out as far as we can and secure everything.
Nice. I think that's a big thing too, because I thought like CertiK from when you guys were formed, you managed you like audit all of these contracts across all of these blockchains. But actually, when you first started, you only audited the contracts in this Binance ecosystem, and then recently you moved on to audit contracts in other chains as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact process that we went. I mean, I've been at CertiK for about a year now, a little over a year, so I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
on
I
that,
can take
but
this one. Ideally, really quick, we just started out doing all the EVM compatible stuff. So the stuff on Binance, the Ethereum, the Avalanches of the world. I mean, we've been around since 2017, so some of these blockchains weren't even really off the ground running yet. But yeah, started with the Solidity. We're now branched out and chain agnostic today. So whether it's a Web 2 language, Web 3 language, we're happy to handle it.
All right, cool. Great to know. As a Beavertail, I think let's introduce what Platypus Finance is to the Avalanche community right now, and what you offer that's different from other DEXs.
Sure. So as you have said, Platypus is a stable swap. So it's a DEX specialized in stablecoins. So it's an AMM solution that provides increased capital efficiency because you can put several assets in one pool, first of all. It also brings single-side liquidity provision, which means that you can deposit single assets into a pool. And also, we provide a great user experience because you're not obliged to add assets in pairs because we have a Web 3.0 interface. Why should you care about this? So first of all, we offer lower slippage than any other DEX out there. I think we started out with 0.01% of slippage in the main pool. Now it's 0.02, but still highly competitive. To give you an idea, when we first featured Paraswap, most of the big swaps over 100K were routing through our AMM. So as of today, we have flipped Curve in Avalanche. And also we have, as I say, higher scalability. We propose our users to provide liquidity in single size, so as a single asset. And we also try to be as obsessed as we can with security. We have an unpeg protection that allows our users to deposit into a pool and to feel a little bit more confident in the case of an unpeg. And of course, we can go into details later on of how we have handled unpegs in the past. We happened the UST unpeg, and we had some meme FUD as well we had to handle. But yeah, that's what I would say Platypus is in summary. Yeah.
Nice. And it comes to show that all these guests in the call right now has extensive experience in the market. And the main topic of today's podcast is how safe are DeFi protocols, right? And so what are the takes on the overall security of DeFi in general and what needs to be done? I think, CertiK, you guys can go first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the overall security of DeFi has seen many improvements, especially like the last year and everything like that. I mean, I think audits are becoming more normalized and expected, which is a great thing, I think. But I mean, there's common security risks that we still see, such as admin key compromises, coding mistakes, flash loans, and a bunch of other stuff. But luckily, most of this can be alleviated through smart contract audits, and that's one of the reasons we push for them as much as we do and recommend them because, I mean, I think it is a great first step in security for DeFi in general. But as far as like something we see is a common mistake projects make is like they'll get an audit and then the community is kind of okay, like oh, they got an audit, they're good to go. And projects don't always keep up with that security. So that's one of the main problems we've been seeing is, I mean, I know like whether it be CertiK or another competitor, we often get blamed when there's an exploit, but more often than not, it's in contracts that weren't shared with us and that we didn't audit. So it's not in our scope. So that's one of my main recommendations of projects is kind of to keep up with security and keep up with audits. It's not a one and done. So that's, I mean, obviously then we have the scams and rug pulls, which are another problem that have been kind of getting worse and worse this year. I don't think the bear market brings out the best side of that, but we also have been developing different services to combat that as well. Michael, I don't know if you have any takes on this, but
yeah, I think you said it well.
All right, nice. And the thing is, I noticed. I'm pretty new in the market, and I thought initially like if a project has an audit, that means all of the contracts are safe. You know what I mean? Like all of the things, all the aspects are safe, and they have KYC and everything. But then later on, when I follow the market, I realized that no, actually the projects, I think they give the auditing firms the contracts that they want to be audited, not all of the contracts. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah.
All right, cool. That's what happens. And a lot of people in the Twitter kind of comment section said that okay, CertiK missed this, CertiK missed that, but I don't think that they understand that. Yeah, CertiK can only audit the contracts that they received, not all of the contracts. So that's the thing that people can look out for. And what about you, Platypus Pivotal? What are your takes on the over security?
So first of all, I have to say that security, we don't do security to have fun. This is not the most fun part of building protocols. I particularly enjoy sharing with the community, working on novel solutions, imagining new paradigms to exchange crypto in a trustless way. But security is not the most fun part. It's definitely a due diligence that you have to do as a responsible builder. Is DeFi safe? In general, I would say no. I would say that you need to be quite picky with your protocols if you want actually your funds to be safe. What they have said is true. When protocols audit their contracts, they don't always submit all their contracts. This is because the more contracts you submit, the higher the cost of the audit becomes. And also, all DeFi protocols evolve with time as well. And if you want to audit all of your modifications, sometimes it becomes really, really costly, really expensive for the protocol. And this is only something that protocols with a big TVL and quite some revenue, such as ours, can kind of allow themselves to do. So definitely, it's a difficult question, and I think it's the role of companies like CertiK is really important for DeFi to develop.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, first of all, you brought up a good point, Mr. Beaver, when you say, security is not the most fun thing. One of the things we're trying to do over here at CertiK is make security sexy. It's super important to the industry, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. And, something we're doing at CertiK is, targeting projects at the early stages, so that we can kind of understand what their roadmap is, what their goals are on a, 6-month, 12-month, 18 and 24-month basis. So when people, like, for example, get their V1 audited, that's obviously going to be more expensive than just having, a few contracts audited. But see, as updates are made over time and, we have that relationship and continue to grow together, we're able to, I guess the misconception I'm trying to clarify here is, it's, after that first audit, it's certainly expensive, but as long as you keep up with your updates, each audit after that will just be an addendum. You don't have to, pay for the entire audit to be redone, even if you're just looking to get, additional 200 lines of code updated. So I think a lot of the misconceptions in the space are, I don't know if they're misconceptions, but shortcomings is probably a better term. You said it can get expensive. So, we're working to, partner with projects, like I said, at the early stages, grow together. And, as that relationship kind of grows and develops, we're able to, provide, preferential pricing and, and it's just kind of that, you scratch our back, we scratch ours, and, together make the entire, DeFi ecosystem more safe for, investors and, end users at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Beavertail, what do you think about their offer? Like, I think they offer you to do the audit with them. And as you can see in the website, you're not audited by CertiK. I mean, if we can get some kind of partnerships happening in the call, that'd be nice. And yeah, Beavertail, I mean, I would love to know more about the audits that you have with different companies like Hacken. Is that right? Yeah. And so how's it going?
Yeah. So the reason we haven't been audited with CertiK is because, of course, we have been building like for a year now, and at the moment, as you know, like DeFi, we're always rushing things, and we're always like going fast, trying to go as fast as possible in a secure manner, of course, but trying to go as fast as possible because the market moves so fast that sometimes you just have to ship the features, right? So I know this because I know quite some builders that, and we share this thought, is that sometimes you have to choose the auditor that is available and not the auditor that you want sometimes. But we have been, I have to say that we have been quite lucky because the auditors that we have worked with have been quite good. So first of all, we got like one internal audit. I think internal audits are a quite important part of auditing because some people just send the code to an external auditor and they don't even take the time to like review the code themselves. And I think this is a really bad practice. Then we got audited by Hacken. After that, we got audited by Amnesia. Then we got to launch. Avalanche provided some support as well from some of the best hackers they had. They took a look at the code, tried to break things. Then we got audited by Halborn. Then Halborn again, and then we're working with some independent auditors. So I think so far we have been audited like 7 times, and still I think that the effort has to be continuous. And I have to say I feel confident in the code. I feel that it's running well, but one can never lose his guard, right? We need to keep auditing stuff. We need to keep double checking things. So I don't exclude the possibility that we work with CertiK because I think they're doing a great job. And yeah, that's pretty much or
Amazing. Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback, and it's super important that you do take security seriously, and there's a lot of business out there that ultimately, I guess at the end of the day, there are competitors, but we all share the same common goal of making this this Web3 industry and DeFi industry in particular safe for everyone to participate.
Right, and yeah, of course, and also, guys, Chance, since you are the co-host, you can ask, Platypus anything you want to. All right, so from what I've heard, right, so a DeFi project in general, it cannot just operate based on one audit and call it safe, right? So it needs constant audits, and Platypus Finance, they have 7 audits already, and they are really confident. But for these, so do you think that it's a sign that a DeFi projects, they just have like 1 or 2 audits, and that's it? And do you think that it's not safe, and that's like a sign to show that they're not really, I would say, devoted in the project?
First of all, if I can say something, I think that the number of audits is not necessarily the good indicator of security. I think it depends a lot on the code base of the protocol. If it's a protocol that has like high ambitions, that wants to expand into several verticals, then definitely one would expect to have several audits for this project. But there are some projects that are quite small, that it's just like a token with some functionality, and it's okay to have 1 or 2 audits for this type of projects.
Yeah, I was gonna basically say the same thing. It really depends on protocol by protocol. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing, because different projects will go through different changes, and I mean, it's important just to keep an eye on like which contracts are audited, what are the main ones in the protocol, and that kind of thing. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily a red flag right away. No.
All right, so if these projects have these audits and they still get hacked, right? So what are the reasons that could be the reasons behind these hacks, even they have these audits? Maybe CertiK, you could go first.
See, I mean, I'm not too technical on the security.
Oh, okay. Michael?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer this. I do want to kind of clarify. My connection just dropped out for a second. So do you mind repeating the second half of that question?
Oh, I was just asking, like, in like a project, they had like several audits, but they still get hacked. So what could be the
Got it. Yeah.
It?
Yeah. So it's this circles back to like one of the principles of Web3 is to do your own research. There's I'd probably classify it as like a lack of regulation at this point in time, where like people just go get audits and use it as a stamp of approval, and investors and users won't actually read the audit report. So we strongly recommend all of our clients to go through and make the suggested remediations, whether it's a severe vulnerability, critical, whatever the rating of it is, even all the way down to informal or minor. It's super important to make all your fixes and ensure that all kind of possible backdoors or vulnerabilities are solved. So as regulation starts to enter the space, hopefully we can see a certain standard of security required for protocols to be kind of available and open to the public.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I mean, we see it very often, but if you can go on CertiK.com and check out the full audit reports for any of the projects we audit, and on there it'll show like what issues we found and what issues the project resolved based on our recommendations. So often you'll see, I mean, not often, but sometimes you'll see that a project got audited. We found, say, 5 things in the code listed from medium to major vulnerabilities, and the project chooses not to implement our recommendations. That could be for a number of reasons, but that's one thing that at least I see on my end, that when there is an exploit on an audited code, that's typically what happens. They didn't input our recommendations.
Oh, interesting. So the projects don't have to actually follow the recommendations. They can choose not to.
Yeah, we can't force
wow.
anybody to do that. So like we are very transparent in that, and that's why every audit is listed on the website. We clearly state what we found and whether they fix it or not. So that's one of the main things that we can do for users, is to kind of be as transparent as possible and show everything that we're doing and the project's doing in that process.
And Mr. Beavertail, what's your comment on this?
Yeah, so this is a tough one, because I personally don't think regulation would bring anything to this space. From what I've seen, regulation is basically filing a 50-page report to some random dude in an office who will read this report and perform some checks in that report. I don't know what actually regulation can bring to the space. If it's, to me, it would hinder innovation in DeFi. And by nature, DeFi is decentralized, and although I do recognize that regulators sometimes bring safety to some spaces, but I don't see how this can come into place with DeFi. Listen, there are inherent risks in finance, because you cannot make money without any risk, right? But when it comes to DeFi, I think things can get pretty wild, because funds are in the custody of code. So if there is a flaw in the code, money can get compromised, right? So as you have said, audits are one of the best ways of knowing, of securing smart contracts. However, it's still a human checking the code of another human. And as we know, humans are not perfect, and we do make mistakes sometimes. So I would say the main cause of hacks are human errors. And from what I've seen in my experience, usually the silliest errors are the ones who cause the greatest damage. Sometimes projects do not implement the recommendations of the auditors. This is really bad, because if you pay for an audit, you should implement the recommendations of the auditors. But sometimes the auditors they give recommendations that are not necessarily tied to security. I would say, like, performing zero checks on non-important stuff, recording events. I mean, all of this is important, but it's not. It doesn't compromise security per se.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You brought up another interesting point about how audits are a manual line-by-line review. There's really two sides to Web3 security. There's preventative security, and then there's reactive security as well. So I guess you can classify an audit as on the preventative side before code is deployed. But here at CertiK, we have a vulnerability monitoring system as well called Skynet. So what does that mean? Think of an audit as like a photograph in time. A still picture. Once code is deployed, it turns into a video. So Skynet functions like a security camera 24/7 in the corner of the room, watching all the interactions with the smart contracts. So whether they interact with a vulnerability, or a risky oracle, or a wallet that's been labeled as a malicious wallet, and that's whether it's been involved in money laundering or whatever the circumstance may be. Our Skynet system will be able to monitor and notify project teams within about 7 to 10 seconds of these interactions happening. So once again, it's hard to prevent these things from happening, and trying to predict the future before it comes. But that's why we've implemented reactive security as well in our suite of products. Just to prevent God forbid, or what I should say is to minimize, God forbid, the worst that could happen with a hack.
Yeah. And I was just about to ask you about the Skynet thing that you have too. All right. So about the security thing related to the KYC of CertiK, how do you normally process these KYC of these projects?
Yeah, super good question. So we've hired on our KYC due diligence team. Excuse me. We've hired a number of former 3-letter agency individuals. So whether it's the FBI, MI6, French intelligence, Department of Justice, State Department, we have people from all around the world, all with differing backgrounds, who make up a very, very talented, like I said, due diligence team. So what does that due diligence process look like? We run very in-depth background checks on project teams to ensure they are who they say they are. There's an interview process to ensure that CEOs, all co-founders, COOs, chief technology officers are all on the same page. And to ultimately, the goal is to provide a risk assessment of project teams before we analyze code. So who's that valuable to? That's valuable to investors who are looking at projects where, founders aren't doxxed. We'll do kind of take some of the burden off and help instill confidence by, understanding who the founders are. We will get their identities and ensure that they are real people too as well. So God forbid anything happen. We have the capability to, pass that information along to the authorities wherever the project's based out of. So there's a few different sides of the KYC product and the benefits that are accompanied with it.
Yeah, one important note on that is not being anonymous. That's very essential to the ethos of crypto. What made crypto what it is today, and a common misconception that people have is we dox founders or builders. That's not true. And only very few of the people that actually apply to our KYC pass it, whether that be for what we found in background checks, previous project history, that kind of stuff. But I just want to get that out that it's not a doxing service. We never release your identity unless, and this really a large part of this came out of all the scams we've seen this year. It does instill user confidence more in a project when it puts the project owner to make sure they have skin in the game and they are held reliable. Because, time after time, we've seen where project owners rug pull and nobody knows who they are and they get away with all the money. But this really came out of that, and it makes sure your project owners have skin in the game and they are held reliable for if they do some nefarious actions.
Yeah, I was about to ask. And Beaverdale, do you guys have some sort of KYC entity with all these auditing firms?
So we have decided not to dox ourselves to the community. I think there are several reasons for this. There is security reason, first of all. Second, I would say that sometimes we need to take unpopular decisions that we believe are the right decisions, especially early on in the project. We had to take some quite hard decisions, and having a safe space was very, very important. However, we are doxed to Avalanche and to many of our investors. So, of course, I do understand the fact that some people may feel safer when the founders are doxed, and this is something that I think naturally DeFi will evolve into. However, I think that the greatest talent in computer science wants to keep some privacy, and I think with recent events, I think we all need to think a little bit more about privacy and how can we do something to protect it. Otherwise, we will have no control over actions in the future.
Yeah, I do agree, and that's why I threw in that kind of part about it's not doxing, that kind of thing, because there are a number of reasons why project owners or builders might want to stay anonymous, whether it be for security reasons. Depending on where you live, you could be at risk for something like that. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because I do understand your take, and I do see that it's an important part of crypto. So that's why I wanted to just throw that in there, that we don't dox, we don't do that kind of stuff. It's always held very privately and securely. It's never shared with anybody.
Gotcha. And I think that's the same thing that we do here in this in our AVAX daily community and all of other daily channels that we have. We also KYC the projects, but our process is way easier. And also we're not doxing their information to the public. And sometimes the projects, they are scammers, and the investors, they come into the community and they said okay, why aren't you providing the information about these founders of these projects? It's in our policy. We don't want to provide these informations to the public. We want to provide information to the authorities if they actually contact us, and then we will. But it's not information for the public. It's an agreement between us and the project, and I totally understand that, and I think that's great too. Right. So that is about the KYC too. Yeah, Chance?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's interesting because anytime money is involved, people can get a little crazy. So I don't know, I do understand not wanting to dox because I've even had some interesting communications on Telegram where we've been blamed for something that wasn't our fault. And people send some pretty nasty messages and threats. So I completely get it, especially from a project side when you are not responsible for people's money, but they look at it that way. So just wanted to throw that in.
Dude,
Yeah, exactly.
Jack Paul said, it's every day, bro. It's frustrating sometimes too. But then, I just want to take this time and tell people listening to this call that the projects, our KYC, our DD process is not hard, guys. We do not go through with the CC. We only require the, I think the ID and also a picture of them in that moment. But they can actually hire people from, I don't know, India, Africa, these to actually do the KYC for them. So it's not trustworthy. But I think the KYC in these auditing firms like CertiK is much more trustworthy. Any comments?
Yeah, it's super crazy that a market has, been created for, people to get fake KYCs done. The first time I heard
it's a
that, it blew
service
my
out there.
mind.
Oh, really? Yeah, it blew my mind too. Like people actually get hired to do this. They were not afraid of anything. And if the funny thing is that there is a kid, I think his name is Ian. He worked, I think he's a developer in Solana, and there is a report saying that he faked being 11 developers developing 12 different projects, and nobody can catch him. And then he actually had to maybe come out and say that it's actually just him. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
we've
insane.
caught in our KYC process, we've caught quite a few people who pretend to be somebody else. Go through they think they can pass it. They go through live video calls, fake IDs, the whole 9 yards, and just for us to find out no, that's not you're not who you say you are. So there are many hired actors that you can pay to do KYC for you. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, let's move on to the next question here I have for Platypus Finance. So do you have 7 audits? And I think with the projects of your ambition, do you feel like that's enough? But can you still detect the loopholes in the contracts even till this day?
So, we always find stuff, but it's minor stuff, to be honest. Early on, we did find some stuff as well. Nothing critical. At least not stuff that is in production. So I've been really grateful about this. However, as I've said in the past, it's our job to maintain security, and we are more than ever really confident in our design in our pools. But this does not dispense us. We still need to be we still need to be extremely careful. It doesn't matter how confident we are. We still need to be extremely careful every day. Every PR needs to be reviewed. Every time we go to production, we check the contracts again. Everything is double checked. For the next for the next update in Platypus, we'll have gauges, right? So people will be able to vote with their VPTP to decide the weight of each LP. So this. I've always been obsessed with security, so we have decided we will audit this twice, not only once. Since we have some extra funds, let's go for 2 audits, and we won't ship anything into production that it's not audited and we are not certain about. So to answer the question, can we still detect loopholes? Yes, it's very unlikely because we are auditing everything again and again, and this is the same for all DeFi protocols. If someone tells you otherwise, then you shouldn't put your money in, because there's no way in knowing that a protocol is 100% sure. That's the truth.
Nice. Yeah, I do agree. As you improve, you should have your contracts audited all the way through. Right. So let's move on to the segment that I believe is going to be more interesting to the people here. What advice would you give to investors who are looking into investing DeFi projects in terms of security? Do you have any tips, maybe tricks, so that maybe the non-coders who are not looking at these contracts, they can understand?
Yeah, that's do you want to start, Mr. Bieber?
Go for it.
Yeah, from our point of view, I'm a finance and accounting person by trade. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I am not a CS person at all. But by reading our audit reports, it really, number one, helped me understand the language. And understanding the language of Web3 is, in my opinion, half the battle. So make sure you read audit reports. Feel free to if they post their GitHub on their website, open it up. Get into the README page. Actually try and look at code. And actually, if there's an audit report with it as well, that'll help kind of break it down into, as I like to say, a 3rd grade level that people who are not Web3 native will have an easier time understanding.
Right. Vivatel?
Sure. So first of all, I will take a look at who's backing the project. So is this like a fair launch project or is it a backed project? Take a look at the investors. Have the investors invested in other big protocols? Also the founders. If the founders are anon, of course you won't know much about them because of course you can create a new identity for every project. But if they are coming from another project, that you can see their work as well. I would say that the only true way is to check the code by yourself. You have to check the contracts you're interacting with. So whenever you do like an interaction, you copy the address and you go to the Explorer, you check the code, see if it's commented. I would say that's a big thing. I mean, at least for me, yeah, I check the comments. If it's well commented, usually means high quality, but not necessarily, but usually means high quality. Also, you have to take a look at the auditing firm. I would say not all auditing firms have the same quality, I would say. So this is like, to me, is quite important. There are some auditing firms who work more for a check, like it's more of a marketing thing. Like they would just check with static analysis, they do some fuzzing and that's it. And there are other more serious auditing firms, which I'm sure CertiK is a part of, that perform line-by-line analysis and have like very experienced auditors. So I would say this is a big deal. And I would like to add to that is that even though we are in decentralized finance, early on, the projects tend to be quite centralized. And this is because it takes time to build governance, actually. The case of AVE, for instance, early on, the multi-sig could create collaterals and manage important variables of the contract. So you do need to have some trust in the team at the beginning. And if you don't want to have some trust in the team, then you have to go for a protocol who is already decentralized, who has already governance in place, and you can see the forces that are in place. You can study the forces because governance doesn't necessarily mean decentralization, right? You have to study what are the stakes and who is playing in the governance and how it evolves. So it's actually quite a complex game, I would say. And but I would say that the easiest way is to check who's back in the project and see the quality of the code, see the contracts you're interacting with, read the documentation, see if it's like serious, and that would be it, I think.
Well said.
Yeah. So they came at this as like the coding, that kind of security side. So I'll just do this from like a scam / like what to look out for kind of thing. On our website, we've actually put out quite a few blogs on like what users can watch out for, like red flags in a crypto project, like that kind of thing. So I would definitely recommend everybody head over to CertiK.com, get the resources, check out the blogs, because that's one of the large part of the things we do is kind of the educational side for users, just to know what to look for. I mean, there's the obvious marketing ploys such as promising 100,000% APY. I mean, there's the no audit. There's a ton of things that you can look out for. And we have, again, blogs and resources on all this. So I would just recommend heading over there, checking it out. We have the most common crypto scams you see, what to look for, how to double check before connecting your wallet to some site, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the APR is quite interesting actually, because I think that nowadays, since DeFi has become like so widespread, and like there are so many opportunities and so many people trying to take advantage of these opportunities, I think that APR is actually like a measure of risk. Because if there's money to be made, then someone's going to take the chance, right? So the higher the APR usually means the higher the risk. There's little exceptions to this rule, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I know people who are kind of on the more riskier side of things will do it for a very short time, get out, but there's always going to be winners and there's always going to be losers.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what my colleague said to me? Like, if you want to evolve these protocols, just go for like a week and then get the heck out right now. This high APR thing. And so do you guys think, what is like the sweet spot of this APR? Like, how many percentage is too high? How many percentage is like acceptable? I know it depends on the project, right?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question, man. So you have to take a look at how the project generates this APR, right? So if it's a new protocol, you can expect higher APRs because the big investors probably are afraid of getting in like first. So if it's a new protocol, you can expect higher APRs. Doesn't mean that the protocol is not safe. It happened with us. It has happened with other protocols as well. Once the protocol is battle tested and is considered to be safe, I would say like, I don't know, like something between, if you want like low risk, then something like 2%, 3%. If you want to take more risk, but you're still like medium risk, 5 to 10%. More than 10%, it depends on the protocol. It's really, really hard to answer this question like globally. But there is no way of generating more than 20% APR, in my opinion, without taking like risks, unless you know stuff that other people don't know, which comes to the question of how much do you know about DeFi, how much do you know about these protocols, have you studied them? And as I said, do you know stuff that other people don't? If you do, then go ahead. But if you don't, then don't.
Yeah, I really like that what you said, Mr. Beaver, about the higher APR is higher the risk. That really, it does make sense. And I would it's up to the user's like risk appetite level, whatever they're comfortable with. But in general, you got to think about what's realistic. If everybody could be out here getting 100,000% APR, then we'd be doing it. But there's obviously risk levels to that, and it's up to the user to determine what's right for them for the most part. But I would just err on the side of caution for the most part.
Especially
right, gotcha.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, as you know, DeFi has become like like composability has become like a big component of DeFi, like protocols like depositing tokens into each other, and every time you deposit like a token into another protocol, that you earn an extra token, and it goes like a snowball effect. Like you can generate like a ton of APR, but some people don't see the inherent risks of like dealing with several protocols, right? And this was something that we were trying to solve early on in Platypus, is like, how can we avoid this extra risks of having like your curve tokens being deposited into Aave, and then these Aave tokens being collateralized to lend. Like all of this, generates extra risk. And if there's like a hole in the chain, then you lose your money. So yeah, you have to understand what's happening with your money. And I think what happened with Terra and with Luna, it's a great example of like understanding what's happening, what's actually keeping the value of a token at this value, and what can happen and what can go wrong. And I must say that I was quite surprised to see that no one saw that coming. And when some people started like questioning, UST and Luna, they were treated as really pessimist people. And I think this is something DeFi has to look on, has to keep an eye on. It's like pessimists are actually good for the space. We need these people. And these people will help us, feel safe. And I think you should listen to these people as well. Yeah.
Man, why can't we do this earlier, dude? You could have warned us about Luna, and we could have saved like tons of money into it. Yeah, I do agree. I host these AMAs too, and these DeFi projects, they come into the community and they said like, hey, look, our APR is like 600%. Dude, it's a sponsored event, so I have to talk like highly of them. But, inside, I'm like, no, please don't buy into this. Also, yeah, let's get into one question that I really like, because, someone sent me this in my DM and they asked me like, in case of my wallet gets compromised, what steps should I take to salvage what's left? I think he's reference to the recent, Slope wallet kind of thing. So what are your takes on this? What should we do?
Mr. Beaver, do you have any insight to that?
Yeah. So first of all, you should send all of your money to a separate wallet, generate this wallet in a different way. So let's say your MetaMask seed was compromised. Don't create a new account in that MetaMask account seed. You should like go into a separate wallet, separate solution, like either Ledger, whatever you choose, hardware wallet if possible. You create a new account, you back up your seed, not online, you paper or something else, hide it very well, and you send all of the money to that account. Should be enough. Don't ever touch that money, that account again. If it was like an approval error, you can always try to approve 0, and it will override this approval. But this is like more complicated. I would just like send all of the money out of the wallet that is compromised. And sometimes you need to like, if you feel that you have been compromised, don't take the risk of using the same wallet. Just create a new wallet and send everything to that wallet, and you should be safe. As long as your private key and your seed are safe, you should be safe as well. Also, I think that the most important thing is something, it's really hard to do, and I think this is like an issue we have with DeFi, is that checking the interactions with the contracts is really tedious. Actually, I have to say, I mean, I do it sometimes, but I don't do it all the times. And this is something that we always should do. If you want to ensure that your funds are safe, you have to ensure that the contract you're interacting with is the right contract. And it's really super easy to just add a function and rug pull. So you have to really make sure that it's the right contract. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's really hard to do, really tedious, but if you want to be safe, that's the way.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That's good advice. One thing I would just say is if the terrible happens, such as like with Solana, I mean, I know I was checking my Phantom wallet over and over, but just be cautious of what you do connect your wallet to, because there are many, many fake phishing sites and that kind of stuff. So just always be cautious on that end as well. But then I know we were in a space with Everrise the other day. They're on Avalanche as well. And there are a bunch of new tools being created. Like they made Ever Revoke, which automatically revokes all like privileges with different whatever you connect your wallet to after the transaction goes through. So just keep an eye out for like new things being created to kind of help on that front. But yeah, I would take Mr. Beaver's advice there.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to, I would say, batch revoke all of your permissions. That's nice. All right. So, there is an advice that I've heard in a space session not so long ago that this guy is like a developer in a security firm. He told us that also in case of a front-running attack, you should like batch transfer all of your tokens in one time. You do not want to transfer one at a time because the hackers may detect that you know something is going on, so that he will actually try to front-running you. And so yeah, just try to batch transfer all of your tokens in one go. So can I like transfer my tokens to like maybe a centralized exchange? Is that also secured?
If you feel safe having other people hold your private keys, then go for it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. For a meantime, for a short period of time, yeah, and then we'll set up another wallet after that. Keep your money off exchange.
Should be fine. Yeah, should be fine.
Unless you're playing futures.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it. So let's open the chat for maybe a couple of community questions. Oh, in our answer, we'll maybe open the chat for some people if they want to ask.
I'm cool to stay for a couple. If we get, looks like we have a few more requested.
Okay. So guys, if you have any questions about security in DeFi, about CertiK, about Platypus Finance overall, go ahead and hit the request to speak button that should be in the bottom left of your phone. And I've seen a lot of people in the call asking to speak. Here we go, Ben. You are next. What is your question for us, please? Hassan?
Oh, hi.
You are unmuted.
Yeah, I'm connected now. I can hear you. Yeah, thanks for the conversation. This is very interesting. So you talked about skepticism, so I'm going to throw a little bit of skepticism, and I hope it's going to help. So, we've been developing computer system, seriously for at least, 50, 55 years. And, it's kind of like interesting to find ourselves in a situation where with this new technology, we're basically talking about, hey, the best thing we've got is audits, where people go through the code line by line. Do you see something better than that? I know you've talked about, regulation, and regulation are not the best thing in this case, but, if the best we're doing is auditing code by hand, maybe not regulation, but like standardization of these audits might help. So if you can, see a better future than the state of the art.
Yeah, that's a great question. Mr. Beaver, I'll start off and then you can tag in here. It's a great question. And you bring up the security standards as well. That's a very true point, and I think a lot of the top auditing firms work together to set a standard for projects to meet. But the challenge with that is also that Web3 as well as security is an ever-evolving space. It's not like kind of you set your standards, you're done, and that is that. Humans always strive for the next level whether it's, whatever sort of improvement it is, and whether that's for good or for bad. Hackers are always looking for the next big hack, and we're looking to, secure the next big project from that hack. And then kind of feeding off that first point, I don't think audits are the one solution. I think they're a major answer to the problem, but I think it's going to be, making sure everyone's KYC'd to an extent. Doing on-chain monitoring solutions as well. Bug bounty programs, engaging white hat communities to, take a look at your code and look for possible vulnerabilities. So there's, a few different angles to approach that question from. But those are just some of the initial thoughts off the top of my head. Mr. Beaver, do you have any comments?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I mean, it's a great question, by the way. So the best thing that we know about in terms of security is formal verification. But the issue with formal verification, so if you don't know about formal verification, actually this is the act of proving or disproving the correctness of intended algorithms. So I'm reading Wikipedia here because I didn't know the definition. It's basically using mathematical logic to prove computer systems. The issue with formal verification is that it's extremely costly. It's super hard to do, and it requires extensive resources. In addition to that, object-oriented programming languages are not the best suited for these practices. I would say, but this is just my opinion, is that functional programming is a little bit better suited for formal verification. The issue with functional programming is that most developers are not used to use functional programming. And Solidity, the way it has been designed, is an object-oriented programming language, and it has created this great network effect. And this is why we are seeing DeFi booming in the past months, in the past year. It's because we have so many devs that are able to come from other languages such as JavaScript, Python, and suddenly become Solidity developers right away. So it's always a balance between business and what computer science can achieve. So it's really a great question, and I don't feel qualified to actually answer this question. There are people who are way more intelligent and more specialized in this. But I would say formal verification is the way forward.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Mr. Beavertail. And for people who don't know, our company was founded by two professors from Yale and Columbia who pioneered formal verification within the Web3 space. So that's at the core of our business.
So I have a comment about your answer. So I happen to know a lot about formal methods, and I think one of the missed opportunities in Web 3.0 is precisely not applying enough formal methods, because usually formal methods are costly because somebody is asking you to certify an airplane. Well, that's going to take years. A smart contract is usually you're talking top few hundred lines of code, and it's it's not, there is complexity, but in terms of size, in terms of specifying what the contract does, what's the purpose of the contract is, and what are the bad behaviors of a contract, that's not overly complicated compared to certifying a piece of software, a random piece of software. So I think that's a missed opportunity, and I think we should, as a community, strive to bring our standards to really higher levels. And, maybe part of the standard is look, if you haven't had a formal verification, or at least write a formal specification, explain what this protocol is supposed to do in some standard way so that people actually can take a look at it. We say a lot about open source. It's hey, it's open source. Look at it. Go inspect the code. I mean, we have history of code that has been published, put on, for public scrutiny for 10, 15 years to finally find, a serious bug in it. It's the fact that people don't look at code. They, nobody's going to do their own research and look at code. But we can actually, raise the standards and say, look, we're not going to invest in a project that hasn't had formal verification applied to it. Take the route of certification. That's what happens in critical systems. In avionics, you can't fly a plane if it's not certified. So why let somebody actually run a business that has billions of dollars flow through it without actually verification? So that's the end of my comment. And thank you for the answers. I think they are very inspiring, and I think this conversation is very inspiring.
Agreed. Thank you, and appreciate your commentary as well. Very insightful feedback.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Great contribution. And I think I would be more than curious to know how much would it cost to perform formal verification on Platypus codebase. This is something that we actually haven't looked into. And I think most protocols, there are some protocols that are looking into this, but since we are still an evolving protocol, we have decided to go through the audit road. But this is something I totally agree with you, actually.
Good question. I'm happy to take that question offline and have a professional or more robust conversation about your code, and if it's our team has the capabilities to do it at this time. It's something I'd have to check internally before speaking to. I just don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Great, lovely. Thank you guys for the answers. That was really good. And I don't think we have time for another questions. If you do ask your questions, join their socials, Telegram, Discord, where you can ask questions, or maybe comment on the Twitter post, and they will be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you, Future B, for your enthusiasm, but we have to end here, guys. Before we sign out, okay, am I audible?
I think I'm cutting in and out. I think I cut out for a little bit. What'd you say?
Oh, really? All right. Sorry about that. I was just saying, if you have any questions. Oh, yeah. My net, it sucks. Right before we sign out, to have
I'm kind of going in and out on the connection as well. But it was a pleasure to speak with everybody. If anyone's, of course, interested in an audit, my DMs are open. The CertiK DMs are open. And if you guys haven't checked it out already, you guys should, take a deep dive into Platypus Finance. A lot of exciting things going on over there. And once again, just appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it was great talking to you guys. Great conversation. Definitely very, very interesting. Great question. Yeah.
And follow
all right. Sorry, guys. I think
that's my last point.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I appreciate everybody joining.
Yeah, we can end here, actually.
No worries.